All right, it's 12. Hey everyone, how everyone is doing? We have people watching us through YouTube, LinkedIn, X, and Facebook. Hey everyone. Yeah, Michael here, as always, your host that does all of this, the fun stuff, right? Yeah, great to be here. As always, very excited to be hosting another webinar. Today, I have an incredible person joining me, one of the best marketers that I know. So I'm very excited about throwing this one out for you guys. My guest and I, we prepared a bunch of cool slides and a lot of special insights for you guys. So, yeah, dude, are we starting? No. So, if we are and everyone is cozy and ready, we do gonna start kind of the official part in a couple of minutes. But before we do that, I want to make sure that everyone who registered for this gonna come down and join us. So before we do that, so I am bringing on my guest.
Hello. Hi, everybody. Good to be here.
Hi, Mariya.
Hi, Michael.
You're doing this,
What?
the event.
Yes, we are. We're doing it. We've been planning this for a while.
Yes.
I don't know if I've ever prepared this much for a webinar. To be honest, I don't know if I've ever prepared this much even for a live conference talk that I've done.
Right. Yeah.
So it's been a while in the making, and I hope it will pay off.
It will. It will. It will pay off for all the people listening to us. It will pay off for both of us because we're gonna get people to kind of take a sneak peek into how we usually work and how we chat and how we work on things. So it's going to be a work in progress in a way, right? For both of us. And then we're going to have a recording. So I know a lot of people asking all the time, like, is there a recording? So we're hosting this live, but it's going to be recorded on YouTube, LinkedIn, and you're probably going to post it on Kalyna page as well later. So we're going to have it in the recording, right? So the first question before we kick it off is, do we want to keep the music on? Because if you hear there's some music on the background. So yeah. So
yeah.
If there are anyone,
we like the music, but we know not everyone will. So let us know. If the only ones who like the music are the two of us, we can turn it off.
No, so if there are people that listen to this that are against the music, you can just put in the chat that just turn off the music, and we're gonna do that. If
or change the volume.
There's no objections, we're just gonna roll with the music, right? Yeah. Cool.
Otherwise we will keep the music. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm keeping the music for now. So as always, before we start, I have one rule to everyone listening to this. Let's engage. So we're doing this for everyone. So it means that if you have any questions, any comments, any feedback, anything, just go ahead and let us know. And either I'm going to bring on the questions, we're going to discuss them as we go, or at the end we have a QA. So sounds good, everyone? Sounds good, Mariya? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm ready. I hope people are too.
All right. So let me put on the deck here. All right, so content strategies that double your outreach conversions. If I were to ask you, Mariya, why we chose this topic, or why this topic is very important for all the GTM teams right now, or most of the GTM teams right now, actually. We've been hearing about this topic a lot. So this is the question to you to kick this off. Not a simple one.
Why this? Well, I'd say the main reason why is because we see this time and time again in terms of companies saying, well, we keep producing our content, we invest into it, we think it's high quality, right? We have it consistent, but it's not bringing results, right? Even though we hired a great content team, right? We might have fantastic writers, researchers, we're putting in all of this effort and it's not doing anything. And we don't know if it's actually doing anything beyond, driving traffic and vanity metrics like that. Yeah. And the two of us work on this a fair bit in our own time, right? In terms of figuring out how do we make content actually effective. And effective means doing the right things for your business and actually increasing the results across the board, right? Marketing should be driving sales results. Content marketing and anything that's to more top of funnel should be actually helping with increasing results for conversions, right? For outreach, for any kind of sales conversations. And it might be the prettiest content out there. And even if it's getting looked at by a bunch of people, if they're not the right people, if they're not actually bringing in more business, if they're not helping the business keep the lights on,
Right.
it's not effective and something needs to
Yeah.
change.
You know, I always had this idea that content is the articles on the blog post that we've been posting, right? And now, from where I am at, I think that content is the message or the sort of like the brand voice that every company have their own unique in their unique way. And this is your and content strategy is your opportunity to sort of like spread that unique message to the eyes and ears and mouth and stuff of all the people that wanted to engage with you, right? And to not just the clients and the partners, the investors, the people that you want to work for you, and so on and so forth, just everyone, right? Just kind of making the stamp in the world that here we are, and here's what we are about, and here's what we value. This is our mission and vision, and that's what we do, and this is who we are. This is our, it's like in a game. It's our character, right? And we do that
Yeah.
through content, right? So
Oh,
all
yeah.
right, without further
I love
ado,
that.
so the agenda for today would be this. So, you know what? We need to introduce ourselves for the people.
Ah, right. Forgot to do that.
But if everyone, people that are listening to this, you see on the screen the introductions that are not typical. So we didn't put like founder of Belkins, founder of Kalyna Marketing. This is what we are passionate about, me and Mariya, right? So Mariya, what we are passionate about, you and I,
Well,
in
to give
marketing,
a
I
bit
mean.
of a behind the scenes, Michael made me fully rewrite my introduction because I did my usual. I was like, no, this is not what we're doing today. What we're passionate about, I would say, is really helping people see different possibilities here, right? In terms of actually learning how to think less in silos, thinking about how to truly connect all of the kind of efforts and investments that people and their brands might be doing in
Right.
terms of their marketing, in terms of their sales, outbound, inbound, organic, paid, whatever it is. Because we see the kind of channels that we've historically specialized in. For Belkins, that would be, email outreach and such. For Kalyna, historically, that had been content back in the day. We see them as part of a bigger whole, and where we've been moving both ourselves in terms of our thinking as professionals and in terms of the companies that we lead is towards that more integrated vision that actually serves go-to-market functions in a more practical way for the companies we work with.
Love it. So in the next 45 minutes, right? Here's what we're going to cover. So I want us to talk about the stage buyer journey because it's very, very important. And this is the thing that not many GTM teams are doing right now. So the stage buyer journey, and we're going to do content strategies for awareness building stages, then content strategy for activation and engagement stages, best practices for implementing effective content strategies, exclusively from Mariya to the people listening to this, and then Belkins process end-to-end integration. This is what I will be showing behind the scene, what we are doing right now. And then because we did a very long intro, we're going to have about 10 minutes for QA and closing if you folks going to have any questions. All right. So
But also, I just want to reiterate, if people drop questions and comments in the chat while we're talking, we will still respond to them and we are likely to pull them up. So don't feel like you have to wait till the very end to ask
yeah,
your questions. We'd love to see them in the chat.
yeah, 100%. If the questions are relevant to the topic we're discussing, I'm going to put them on the screen. But all the questions will be answered at the end during the QA. All right.
Yes. Yeah. Don't be shy.
Don't be shy. All right, so the buyer journey stages explained. All right, so the reason that I wanted to kick off with this is the fact that there is a certain misinformation or confusion or the lack of knowledge from a lot of leaders have it, including myself, is that we're always focusing on the part of the funnel where there's a conversion, right? We need opportunities, we need SQLs, right? We need like, okay, here's what's happening, right? And most of the time when we expect the return on the investment, it's where we are like, okay, how many leads are you going to generate? How many book meetings you're going to book? What would be my ROI? How many sales are going to make, right? This is like exactly what we need marketing for, right? Which is true and fair, right? What I didn't realize early in my career and what I'm realizing more now than ever before is that there are a lot of work that needs to be done with prospects, more time or like far away from the conversion stage for you to be able to actually have a successful conversion rate, right? And what I mean is that you need to build the awareness, you need to activate, you need to engage with them, and then only you need to convert, right? So I always thought about the funnel, and that's actually, Mariya, tell me why it's happening, but why marketers always are so overcomplicating. It's like a surgeons that are like, what's doctor, what happened with me? Oh, and they start throwing a lot of like fancy words at you. The same goes with there. Like, put a funnel on LinkedIn, and then you're gonna have 100 marketers coming in to say, well, it's not the funnel, it's not the stages, it's not, it should be linear, it should be like that or like that. Why so much overcomplication? And then folks like me is like, oh, okay, what can be done here?
Yeah, I love that question, especially because when we first introduced this model of these 5 stages on LinkedIn, I got so many comments that were people being like, you missed this, you forgot this, funnels aren't helpful. And all of those concerns are valid, and people can poke holes in it. I can poke holes in this model myself all day long. But the thing that I think people are missing is the understanding that any framework, any model, is meant to serve a purpose, right? It's a simplification of the real world. We're highlighting certain facts, we're grouping certain things together, we're abstracting things out, and we're leaving other things out for the purpose of making it usable and operational in one capacity or another. When I look at a buyer journey, I'm not thinking about this in terms of every single prospect you have or everybody in your audience, you can drive them to go through all of these stages one by one from start to finish, in a neat little way. No, this is more of an aggregate bucket in terms of how to categorize the people that you are reaching, right? And making sure
Right.
that you're not leaving out anybody that might be at a stage that might not be as directly connected to your solution yet, or might be after the initial sales call, right? Like stage 5 here. If you don't have any marketing material for any one of these buckets, you are missing out, right? On the potential of making your marketing more effective,
Yeah.
on getting more leverage out of content, out of any other kind of marketing that you're doing. This is not meant to say this is how people always work. People are complicated, things happen, there's
Yeah.
a ton of factors. It's more that these are helpful buckets that people tend to fall into at some point, and being able to speak to that makes your marketing effective and it helps guide you.
Yeah.
Does that make sense, Michael? Do you have anything to
Absolutely.
add?
Absolutely. I love the explanation. Yes. And I would just want to add that what was helpful for me personally was that being a CEO of the organization, right? And just understanding this concept of the stage buyer journey and understanding different stages, and then relating it to how your company is operating, how your GDM team is operating, this is already a win, right? Because now it's like you're totally in a different ballgame. Because most of the companies, I think like 80% of the companies, they don't have that. Because what people are doing is that they're focusing on the channel rather than focusing on this overall thing, right? Here's a good example is, here's the number one mistake that most of the companies that hire outsource SDR agency like Belkins or building an in-house team from scratch, they're focusing on the conversion stage when they have a new buyer persona, a new industry, or a new product. I've seen that so many times, and they're expecting the conversion. So I am in a new industry, I have a new buyer persona that I never work with, I have a new product, and what I'm doing is I'm focusing on the conversion. I'm trying to set up channels, paid ads, LinkedIn outreach, cold emailing, cold calling, and I'm trying to get the conversion. You can obviously get the low hanging fruits, and you're going to have some people that are going to engage, right? But it's not going to be sustainable, and it's going to be just, not very high conversion overall. So this is the number one mistake. And the reason is that this mistake is happening is that people don't know what the other stages are and the importance of those stages, right? So what we're doing at Belkins right now is we're trying to build a process internally as well as for clients that will allow us to tap into all the stages and help to guide the prospect from point A to point B through all the stages, thus increasing the conversion in each stage. And then having help from companies like Kalyna Marketing and other companies that can help to complement to create the more like omnichannel journey, right? So when I mentioned in the topic, the road to effective omnichannel, it's not a theoretical concept like it's a like I just as a side note. I talked with my account manager Mariya this morning, and they say like, Michael, this account left us, and say like, okay, why they churn? And the account manager is
Hmm.
like, oh, they decided to move inbound. And I was like,
But
hold
wait,
on,
what?
like
Excuse me.
what does it mean moving to inbound? Like how would that, like I think like HubSpot creating the inbound and outbound and all outbound motion and all that, people confusing that it's all about the marketing, it's all about the buyer and all the stages. And you can execute this in a different way, shape, or form as long as you have, again, the capabilities, right, for that. So
I am not surprised. I wish I was. But I hear these things all the time as well. It's like too many companies have decided that just because these things can be managed separately and there's certain frameworks to think about one kind of marketing versus another, that means that you just have a bunch of switches that you can turn on and off, right? It's like we feel like doing SEO this month. We feel like
yeah,
doing email the next month. We feel like going to trade shows now. And then they're stuck wondering, well, we've tried everything and none of it worked and we don't know why. I guess none of these channels just work. And when you actually look at it, they never actually invested into making anything consistent enough for it to
yeah,
work
yeah.
because
Well,
marketing works on a long-term time scale.
we do gonna talk more about channels
Yeah.
later on, but
Yes.
yeah. So as a result of this, again, poor understanding or not
Hmm.
have a very effective process like that, here's what's happening. I call it like fragmented customer journey. Is
Hmm.
where you have the stages that we've mentioned, and you kind of say, all right, I'm good, and then you have different channels on the different stages, and then some stages can be missing. That's exactly what Mariya mentioned, right?
Hmm.
Like you don't have the complete picture. You never worked in the stage journey way. You never look at this at what is this actual channel is doing for me right now, right? Or
Yeah.
what that channel or what I'm missing. And as a result of that, and this result of this fragmented journey, um it's not just about missing opportunities, but it's also about very low conversion. So what you see here on the screen is an
I love this slide,
average.
by the way, very much. I think it's great.
Yeah. So we've talked to more than 100 companies for this, primarily tech, professional services, consulting, marketing, advertising. So anyone digital, and we talked to them about their challenges and about their metrics, and then here's what they reported. So on average right now, and particularly most of the respondents were from tech, is on average SDR is booking 2 to 4 qualified opportunities a month, right? So they might be booking more calls, but these are the opportunities, right? The conversion from lead to demo is between 0.5 to 1%. So it means that it just takes them too much time and effort to go through all the leads and getting them, right? So we see the conversion is low. The conversion from demo to a client is between 9 to 12%. It's below average, so we're looking average between 10 to 13 in a way. But then the costs are $600 to $900. CAC is up to 10K, and the sales cycle, right? What does it tell me is, first, my SDRs are working not very effectively. They're booking not a lot of the opportunities for me, right? The conversion to a demo schedule is low. So again, probably something with my funnel. My conversion to a declined is okay, but I'm not driving enough opportunities to be able to just grow, right? My cost of demo is on the high end can be $900 plus. I cannot scale; it's not sustainable. And my CAC is also takes me 3 to 4 months to be able to get ROI from start making any money from the client. And as we know right now, the LTVs are not very high. So like companies are churning, they're not paying. So again, this is what. So our job today, and what me and Mariya have been focusing on, is then what can be done to increase this number, right? To make sure that SDRs are booking more appointments, that the conversion from lead to a demo is higher, then the closing ratio is higher, that the CACs are lower, the cost per demo is lower, right? So that's kind of the entire goal of this exercise, and what all the GTM teams are struggling with, at this point. So, all right. I think that what's important to mention here as well, and Mariya, you also can comment on this even more than I do, is the fact that the buyer experience is all about the emotion, right? Like, is at every stage of the funnel, we have a different emotion with regards to the brand. Sometimes we can be more curious, sometimes we can be more pissed off, sometimes can be like more like, like, oh, what's happening here, or I don't want to talk to them, or sometimes like, all right, it makes sense. So every stage from problem recognition to need description to supplier search have a certain emotion. So what's happening is that if your buyers are on a stage where their emotion level is more on a negative side, like they know there's a pain, they don't want to recognize that the pain exists, right? And they're like, yeah, I know, but I have some other things going on for me here, right? So I don't want to hear you. If you push them with a conversion and say like, all right, let's talk, let's get it, you will piss them off, right? So instead of building a good relationship and just being like, oh, they will tell you, oh, I know this guy, like, pissed me off or something like that, right? So the idea is that if you know this and you know what stage are connected to a certain emotion status, right? And then if you know that how to work with it and how to cater your strategy around it, the relationship will be more stronger in terms of development, but also you got to just grow in terms of emotion, right? You're not going to go down. Anything
Yeah.
to add here, Maria?
Yeah, I mean, what I want to add to this is just think about this on a human level, right? If somebody is upset because they've realized that their current solution isn't working and suddenly they realize they have to go out and put a buying committee
Right.
together, go look at alternatives, spend all of this time, then actually onboard people onto a new solution, they're not going to be very happy about it. So if you barge into the metaphorical door, right, of that person's consciousness being like, hey, great news, your current solution sucks, this is terrible, you have to rip it out, but we have a new one and look at how awesome we are. It's tone deaf. It doesn't ring
Right.
the right way, right?
Yeah.
It's like if you were going to the doctor and the doctor tells you, hey, you have cancer and you have to go do chemotherapy now. They're not going to have party poppers and balloons that they're giving you
Yeah.
being like,
Yeah.
yay, congratulations,
Right.
right? It doesn't work. We have to actually have empathy here. That's what this is really about.
That's a great point. But then at the end of the day, like, you cannot, like, when you wanted to convert someone, you're probably gonna talk a lot about the problem, right?
Yes,
So a
but
lot, and a problem is painful. And if the problem
yeah.
is painful, then you don't want to put it during the awareness stage, like, right, in a way where you kind of you want to put it during like the like you wanted to have to recognize the problem, but you don't want to come in with your door and say, here, I know you have a problem, you even didn't recognize that the problem exists, but I know you have it, and here's the solution to the problem. And you're like, hold on, it's too fast for me, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not there yet.
I mean, here's a bit of a grotesque example, but I like those because I think they get the point across. It's like trying to flirt with a widow at her husband's funeral,
Mm,
right? It's like, yes, sure, she might be interested in a relationship in a couple years, maybe,
right.
right? But that doesn't mean that she's going to be willing to listen to you right now while she's standing there crying and grieving, right? There's a
Yeah.
time and a place for things, and we have to give our buyers or our prospects that space that they actually need.
All right, so we identified that the stage bar journey is important. It exists there because we wanted the entire funnel or entire journey to work effectively, not just the conversion stage, but the entire funnel, right? We know that what customers are expecting us, that what the great customer experience is. We know that it's connected to emotion, right? Like, it makes sense. Now, a lot of folks might ask, all right, makes sense, Michael, Maria. All right, what's next? What can be done during that awareness stage? Like, if I have a sales team or a marketing or BDR team and we're sending cold emails, right? Like, what can be done to be able to build that initial engagements with customer, right? So, Maria,
Wow.
talk to me about the content strategies for the awareness building stage, because you are a content marketer or a content
Yeah. My
expert.
roots are in content
Yes.
marketing. So, yes, let's start with this. So, these are kind of the pre official sales process stages, right? Where somebody is starting to recognize that they have a need, starting to kind of see the cost of that, and beginning to really process like what is not going right, isolating the problem, right? And getting ready to potentially consider something new. So these are the phases before somebody decides, yes, we're actually going to go look for a different solution. And going back to what I was saying before about it being a time and a place, right? Here's another way to kind of get that across. Something I see all the time is marketers kind of rushing to try to get that result, to try to get that conversion way too fast. If you're putting as your CTA at the bottom of a post that's basically just giving somebody a definition or something that's extremely introductory to a topic, and you're immediately like, hey, did you like how we defined content marketing? Would you like to buy from us? Would you like to get on a sales call right now, right this minute? That's not going to work. Hence the little meme here, right, of marketers looking at somebody that's just looking up a definition or a really basic concept and be like, is this a prospect? Is this a marketing qualified lead? And if you mark those people as marketing qualified leads, you're just inflating your metrics, right? And all you're doing is setting yourself up for failure because those conversions are going to be lower because you're putting people in and trying to push them to sales who are likely not going to convert. They're not ready. They're not there. And you can't force it. You can't force somebody to be ready for a sale. You can't force somebody to be ready to buy. A statistic, or like not fully a statistic, but the kind of rule that I like, which is explained pretty well by Ehrenberg Bass Institute on LinkedIn. If you look it up, like their name, you will find it, is the 95 to 5 rule, which is 95% of B2B buyers at any given moment are not in market today. There's data on how frequently companies tend to make certain kinds of B2B purchases, and it tends to be from once a year, once 5 years, once every 10 years, maybe even once every 20 years if it's a big enterprise, right? Which means that all of those people and all of those accounts that might be your ideal buyers, that might be ready to buy from you one day, aren't ready right now. And if you're focusing just on that final stage, right, as Michael was saying earlier, all you're doing is marketing to that 5%. And that means you're missing out on the opportunity to actually get in front of everybody else, to build a reputation, to build the trust, to build the recognizability, and most importantly, to frame how they think. Because by the time somebody starts looking for a supplier or a vendor, they have already made up their mind about the kinds of solutions they're considering, about the kinds of companies they're going to for providing that, and the kinds of aspects of it that are important. And if you are not driving that conversation, if you haven't been somebody that's become a source of authority and influence for them on these similar topics by that time, you are fighting a very difficult battle. You're trying to basically squeeze in all of that education, all of that kind of trust building into a tiny, tiny window of a buying process. And that screws up your results.
I was invited to a podcast a couple of days ago, and a host asked me, like, Michael, you create all this content on LinkedIn and thought leadership and stuff. Like, what's the conversion? How you're converting? And I said, like, that's strange. Like, I'm not working on the conversion there, right? Like, I don't add any CTAs. People don't know a lot, right? What I'm doing is I'm building that authority, that awareness part, and building the audience. It's a consistent work to build brand, audience, message, and just kind of nurture this 95%, and then use the other channels and the other motions that I have in place, to always address that 5%, right? But not the other way around, in a way, right? So
yeah. And again, kind of going back to this intuition that somebody might have, it's the same thing as one day you might need to borrow money from somebody because there's an emergency, right? When you already need to borrow the money and you need it today, if you ask people you've never really spoken to before, they're not likely to give that to you, right? You can only really turn to people who you already trust, who you already know, who will know that you're not going to steal their money, who you can ask something that's sensitive of, right? And if you want to make sure that you have more people to ask from because your family is not on good terms with you or whatever, the time to have gotten those relationships and that trust would have been years ago, right? By the time that the emergency arises, by the time the ask has to be made, it's too late.
Yeah.
So this is something you kind of have to just work on because the moment might come one day and you have to have that trust kind of established. So as to that, we break up our buyer journey here into kind of the appropriate CTAs, right? What are the kinds of goals that you can have? What is the kind of action that somebody would be willing to take while they're at their stage, given that for a lot of it, they're not in market. They're not ready to be in market yet. And the goals we kind of have for these first two stages, which are problem recognition, as well as the general need description. So realizing you have an issue, realizing you want to solve it, and then trying to figure out what kind of solution you're looking for. and what kind of criteria it needs to check off are one, questioning the status quo. So actually taking a critical look at what is your current solution, what are the kinds of results that it's giving you, what are the kinds of problems you're having, who is actually using it on your team, right? Is it doing what you
Right.
thought it should do? And general need description, once they've realized they want to change something, the kind of CTA you can have should be driving the goal of just diving deeper, right? Do you want to look at this aspect more? Like, do you want to dive deeper into the kinds of solutions that are available, right? For example, if you're realizing my problem is I don't have enough leads, you might be looking at a kind of solution that's hiring more people in-house. Another solution could be, investing more actually in the top of funnel marketing. Another would be we
Yeah.
want to get an external vendor that would do outreach for us, right? Somebody like Belkins. And before even a name of that company comes up, somebody can dive pretty deeply into when do you want to go
Mm.
in-house? When do you want to outsource? Do you want to focus on this part of the process versus this part? Does it make sense for you to invest more in your sales team versus your marketing team, right? Or do something else and actually work on your product. And that's just diving in. They're not going to get
Yeah.
on a sales call. They're
Yeah.
not going to care about your brand. They're going to care about their problem in their way.
I've we made a mistake where most of our CTAs across the board were focusing on the sales call.
Mhm.
So as a result of that, the sales team was talking to buyers that were not either qualified enough or they were not ready to buy in to a essentially they don't have a problem that was already outlined in front of them, and then they were not ready to buy the solution that we offer to them, right? So a lot of the conversion was down, and we were like, all right, why is that? Because the depth of the how many pages people research on the website and across the board is very low, because what we were doing, we were like focusing on the channels that were attracting the conversion, like, okay, how we can get the leads fast, right? And what you're saying, what that resonates with me right now and didn't resonate with me a couple of years ago, was exactly the fact that by building this first stage one, stage two, and then essentially helping people to ask questions and want to learn more about this, right, would essentially save me and from that mistake that we made and have that conversion much higher across the board. So
Yeah, because this is basically, again, shooting yourself in the foot and making the job of anybody that's further down the funnel in the sales process, it's making it much harder because then they have to do both the job of framing the conversation, actually making somebody recognize that they have a problem, and convert them all at the same time. You're basically trying to squeeze all of these CTAs into one or two interactions, and of course that doesn't work. It's
yeah.
too much. So, per that point, you have to establish expectations for content appropriately, right? In terms of channels or where you're going, you have to recognize that early on, people are not committed enough or invested enough into going out of their way to
Mm-hmm.
interact with your brand or any of its channels. So, what
Mm-hmm.
you want to do is early on, you want to show up and be present where the conversation is already happening and within the usual flow of behavior that your buyers are already engaging in. So, in the course of their work, what do they already do? What are the kinds of media sources that they read? What are the podcasts that they listen to? Who are the people that they follow on LinkedIn? What trade shows do they show up in? What networking groups are they part of? And you want to try to find ways to get your content right and get in front of them where they already are. So this is why something like LinkedIn or Facebook ads can work, because people are already there. They're already scrolling, right? Versus on the organic side, organic social, again, people are already on LinkedIn. So if you show up there, that's easier versus trying to get them to your site, trying to get them to your channel somewhere, trying to get them on your newsletter. That's a lot less likely to work because they're just not invested enough yet.
Yeah, so true.
Yeah. And the next point here is it's easy to start to feel disillusioned, right? About, oh God, I have to keep track of all of these channels. It was so much easier when we just had like SEO, ads, maybe email, and that's it. And we have to also understand what part of the buyer journey people are in. We have to understand what they already do, how much we can ask of them. This is so much. And I kind of love this meme in general, right? In terms of there's two sides to everything, because on one hand, yes, it's a lot of work to think about all of these channels. But on the other hand, it's a lot of opportunity. It's a lot of opportunity for creativity. And us marketers, and especially content people, we like to be creative. We like to feel fulfilled and like we're solving puzzles. So think about it as a puzzle. How do you fit every channel you have, every campaign you have is a little puzzle piece. How do you fit them all together into a picture, and what might that picture even look like? And I think it's pretty cool because I love seeing clients to start think like when they start thinking this way. I love seeing people in my audience, giving me feedback on how much it opened up their worldview on what they could do. And if you feel stuck in terms of figuring out what the audience expectations per channel are, I have a little framework that might help for researching the channels, which I call the rants and raves. So basically, what you want to do is just look at people within each channel, right? Within your audience. What do they care about? What do they get really animated about? So, very high energy on the positive side and the negative side. On the negative side, very animated, anger, right? Strong negative emotions. They're activated and they don't like it, right? So, these are expressions of things that they don't get it, right? This is so frustrating. This is done. I hate it. This is awful, right? And on the other hand, you have raves, which are positively activated emotions. So, what are things that people get really, really excited about, really animated about? What do they get the most interested in talking and pursuing? And those are the kinds of things that you can then frame your content around and tapping into it, because this is the emotional core. This is meeting them where they're at. It's understanding what they're up to. The other thing that going back to integrating omnichannel, right? What you want is to think of it not just as funnels, but also as flywheels. I love flywheels. This is one of my favorite flywheels that I've built. And the whole point of a flywheel is it's not just end to end from start to finish and then you're done once they convert. A flywheel is meant to be a self-sustaining system. So it keeps going around and around, and every previous run of it, right? Every previous cycle kind of empowers the rest of the cycle. So you're getting momentum, and it's kind of easier and easier to continue maintaining it. So with fan-driven marketing, what the point of this is to focus on interacting with the most loyal, the most excited people in your audience, right? The most excited, passionate customers, and engaging with them wherever they are. So you make content wherever that is, right? On all of the channels. You find people engaging with you, you interact with them, you promote them, and all of these parts can be on different channels. You might be making content on your blog or on LinkedIn. You might be hearing from people via emails that they send you, and you might be interacting with them by inviting them to a conference or a webinar, right? This can work across channels, but every effort empowers everything else, and it all fits together, and it all builds on itself and goes again and again and again. Does that make
I
sense?
love it. Absolutely. I love it.
Cool.
Um,
And
this is actually one of the first, I think, like, I know you for a fan-driven
yeah.
marketing, right? You're very famous for this specific framework.
This is kind of my thing that I tend to get invited to talk about. And it is just one framework. I love it. I think it's a great one. But the point I'm trying to make here isn't that you have to follow this flywheel in particular, but that you can build something similar and consider similar kinds of things. This slide has a lot on it, but what I wanted to highlight here is kinds of the expectations that you could have, right? So for example, having these kinds of buckets of organic social for content, partnership marketing, where you are actually collaborating with other brands and other parties, PR and earned media, where you're showing up and kind of building on authority that already exists from somebody else, as well as your own thought leadership content. There's a bunch of ways you can do this, right? There's a bunch of channels. There's separate metrics to track, most of which go around engagement. They go around visibility, and they go around actually trying to measure resonance, right? How are people reacting?
Yeah.
Are people actually engaging with the content, or are they just clicking and clicking away? That's important. And the kinds of budget allocations that I calculated here are based on some Gartner reports, some other industry reports based on current budget allocation, and then spreading them out a little bit differently based on that 95-5 rule, which is that you want most of your marketing investment and most of your budget to go to those long-term investments that are aimed for that 95% of buyers that are not there at any one time. And I also calculated it out as an example for 20 million ARR. So anybody listening to this, to get your own numbers, what you do is you take the ARR for your company and you basically multiply it by this percentage, and that would be the range for this kind of investment.
I love this. Like, I'm sure that so many people have been struggling with, like, all right, we talk about this awareness, we talk about the content strategy, but what is that exactly? Like, what can be done? Here are the 4 types. Here are all the types of content that can be done during this stage. And here are the metrics you can track. And I also asked Mariya, we need to give the budget. Like, we need to actually show people that it's not going to cost a fortune, and that actually companies can consistently invest in that. So thanks for creating this. Just make the screenshot of this and start implementing that.
Are we going
Um,
to be sharing our slides with people that attend?
I don't know. I don't know.
Maybe
People are
we
not
should.
engaging today a lot in the chat, so
Okay.
I will. I'm
Ah,
probably gonna not share the slides. So
all right.
we'll see.
We will keep
We'll see.
it
If
secret.
someone reached out and say, "Hey guys, I loved your talk. Can you share slides?" Then maybe we're gonna share the
Mm.
slides. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll see. Maybe people might engage at the end. We can have some hope. All right. And the next part here is just the metrics to point attention to for these kinds of stages. When they're
Mhm.
in problem recognition, again, remember they're probably not going to change their behavior from what they're already doing. So the only kind of things really worth measuring are just where did you show up and did you show up in the right places? Are you getting impressions? Are you getting views? Are any emails that you're sending getting opened? And are media placements that you're doing actually going to the right places? Oh, somebody wants their slides. There's a comment, Michael. Oh, multiple people want our slides.
All right. All right. We're gonna
Great.
share the slides. All
Okay,
right.
we'll
All
share the
right,
slides.
Maria. Okay. Thank
You'll
you,
be
guys.
nice.
Yes,
Be
we're gonna share the
nice.
slides.
Okay. Versus for stage two, right? Once they've actually understood that they have a need and they start taking some action, you can kind of get more into engagement metrics. So these are things like clicks and click-through rates, follower growth, right? Shares, mentions, views on websites, and like actual number of sessions, as well as comments. So essentially, this is you're going from they're probably not doing anything out of the ordinary to they're starting to actually pay attention to you, but they're not going to do anything like convert or
Mhm.
talk to your sales team yet. So that's kind of it for the awareness stage. Would you like to mention anything else, Michael, before I move on?
No, I think you pretty covered everything that is important. We have the metrics, we have types of content, we have the budgets, we have basically we actually have everything we need to start doing that. I love your frameworks, and maybe you can mention also about and something that I know you're a good expert on the how to make content more authentic in a way, right? So will you be talking later about the authenticity, or you will mention a few words about here right now?
I can build it into the next section. So thank you for pointing it out. I will touch on that.
Great. Yeah, because we definitely need to touch base on that.
Yeah, it is important. More people want the slides. I love it. Thank you all. Because otherwise it feels a little like we're talking to ourselves. So it's nice to hear that you're all
Why
paying it.
that? Like we always talk like this to ourselves, so that's
We
fine.
do, we do. That is true.
We're just
All
having
right.
fun.
So now, moving into kind of the next phase where the official buyer journey is kind of starting. This is what a lot of marketing theory and a lot of marketing practices think of as the official start of the marketing cycle and the official top of funnel because now they're actually kind of in a funnel. They're actually looking for solutions. They actually care about exploring the things that are out there. So you can kind of expect more from your audience too and get them kind of closer to the conversion metrics that people want. Going into the buyer journey back, right? These are stages 3 and 4. Stage 3 is solution exploration and requirements building. So it's figuring out, okay, we have these needs, we care about these things. Now we're actually starting to consider, right? What kind of solutions do we want? Who are the vendors, right? And the
Right.
CTA there is comparing vendors and looking into vendors. Stage 4 is actually talking to specific vendors that might be selected, right? So that is the time you can actually get your sales call. Woo! Right? Stage 4. We got there. The sales call that everybody wants to put in their CTA. And one of the core points here is now that you are further in and now that people are more invested, what you
Mhm.
really can do is try to get them to your own channels, right? Own channels are things like your site, right? Your podcast, your webinar potentially, right? Things like your newsletter, right? Actually getting them to talk to you directly in your community, right? Whatever that is. And what you want here is to really do both. So don't stop trying to show up and engage with where people already are, but also you can add to the mix channels that you own. And here's just a bunch of examples, but really the idea here is mix it up, right? Have a variety, make sure that you're catching people both out of their way and within their current kind of behavior and their current patterns. And I guess on being authentic, this is an example of how to do that. So this is
Mm.
another framework that I'm using as an example. Um, this would be basically how to think about the kinds of content and the kinds of engagements that you're putting out across channels and mapping it based on emotional resonance, right?
Mhm.
So how likely are you to engage somebody's emotions? Are you more going for just providing information and a quick answer and utility? Or are you actually trying to build that kind of parasocial aspect where people will get to know your brand, get to know people representing it, actually start caring about it, engaging with them as people? And the other dimension here is how large scale is it? Is it an individual interaction, one to one, like replying to a specific comment, talking to a specific person? Or is it large scale where you, as one brand, are talking to a lot of people at once at scale, which is a lot of the kind of traditional content? And the key for authenticity here is kind of to both mix it up and remember what you're doing, right? It might feel disingenuous if you are trying to frame something as extremely emotional and yet all you do is just read out the same kind of text, right, that somebody
Yeah.
could have found somewhere else on a wiki article, right? You gotta match it to expectations, you gotta match it to the goals, and you gotta remember what you're actually expecting from the audience, and you give out kind of what you want to get back. The more emotionally engaged and present you are and vulnerable, the more your buyers and your audience will be with you as well, right? Like what goes around comes around.
Recommendation from me personally is something that I've noticed. Actually, not many companies have that. But do you have anyone who can actually who actually reads the content that you post, like internally, like when you post an article? Like, is there anyone that reads that article out loud and say like, all right, that's a great piece of content, right? Like, or there's no one. There's only like people that are like editing and revising. But there's anyone that actually like knows the subject, like a subject matter expert that read that and say like, all right, it's a great piece of information, or it's just piece of shit, for example, right? Like, well, it's funny because not many people read that, because when you read it, then you're like, all right, it's not very authentic, or like it doesn't include any useful information that what our company does, or it's not like, right? So, oh, you have anything to add here? Yeah.
I just want to say yes to that, because I've noticed that too. It's like, if you are not proud of your own content internally, or the content that your company is producing, why do you think strangers would be?
Yeah.
If you can't even get your own company and people within your company
Yeah.
who are invested in this, who it's about, to pay attention and actually like that content,
Yeah.
it's a lot harder to get somebody out there that already doesn't have any relationship with you to care about it then. It's kind of the minimum bar that you have to meet. And I'm always surprised by how few companies actually consider it.
We've came to this realization, I think, year and a half ago, when we actually reached out to you as a client and say, hey, let's do something with this content, right? But honestly, like, what I see right now is the change or the difference between the content that Belkins produced before that, when actually there was no one that was reading it at the end and say like, all right, this is like a great piece of information, and now where you're like, all right, everyone should be a unique, authentic, emotional, useful, full of exactly what we're doing right now, although it's going to take us more time to produce it, even it's going to be a bit more expensive, but it's worth it. And the fun thing is actually, guys, like everyone is saying that, oh, if you invest in content, it's a long ball, so you're going to get ROI like whatever, like 2 years. How much time does it take to get a good article ranked right now at Google? Like 30 days? Between two.
Honestly, it depends. Sometimes it's a week, sometimes it's a couple
Right.
months.
But
Yeah.
it took us, I think on average, it takes us between 2 to 4 weeks to get it ranked
Yeah.
on top. If it's a good piece of, journalism, I would call it marketing journalism, right? So
Yeah, and I love that term, marketing journalism, because I think that's often what works much better. So we are running low on time, so let me speed through some of the other things here real quick. One way to think about convincing internal SMEs and your own team to actually invest and care about this, because something that comes up is like, yes, we have experts, but they don't have time. It's not a priority for them. Often what you find is those same people, those same executives that you can't get to participate in content, are happy to get on calls, to go network, to go to communities. So what you can really do is frame content as a different kind of networking. It's networking at scale. Remember the previous matrix that was one-to-one, one-to-many? It's the same thing. Networking is you're just talking to people one at a time, building trust, building relationships, and content ideally is the same thing. You're still building a relationship, you're still building trust, you're still responding to people and kind of reacting to what's happening. You're showing up over time consistently, but now you're doing it at scale, which means that whoever cares about networking and building relationships in your company, tell them about how much more they could do the same way, and again, showing up authentically. Get them to show up at scale the way they show up one-on-one to their networking calls and networking coffee chats. Something that one can consider, right, in terms of this is kind of a list of ideas for things to integrate your content with, right, in terms of thinking about it as this kind of relationship building exercise as well. Other marketing campaigns that you're running, sales team pitches and how they qualify leads, your product or service mix, right, your overall business strategy and business model, your partnerships, your existing vendor relationships and collaborations, any kind of match between internal versus external communications, customer experiences and things you're hearing from your customers, and just anything where your company shows up in public to other people is something that should be integrated with your content and should match up. Because authenticity, as you were asking, comes from being consistent. It comes from not wearing one face on one channel and then completely switching your point of view and seeming totally off somewhere else. You should show up your brand as a character, a consistent character, right? A consistent character that behaves similarly, that has the same values, that has the same points of view, the same personality. And just to kind of reiterate on the buyer journey, the kinds of metrics that you can look at here are now people subscribing, people, session time. Are people scrolling till the end? Are people coming back? What is the sentiment? Is it positive, negative, or neutral in terms of the feedback you're getting? What is the social engagement? How many people are booking calls with you, right? How many deals are you getting in the pipeline? So bringing sales metrics in as well. So, yeah. We only have 10 minutes left, so I can speed through this or we can skip this. What would you like to do, Michael?
No, I want you to talk for like a minute at least about the best practice. So like you're here and you are the pro in this. So talk to us about the top one best practice that you would,
I have two that I can say very quickly, so I'll just say them in one sentence each. Number one is just make sure everything connects back to the foundation of your business and how the business brings value, right? So you start with the business model and the point of why you're doing marketing. Then you can break it up into specific strategies. Then you can break it up into tactics and testing, but everything has to connect back to the foundation and a coherent whole and have a logic to it. So that's one. Tip number two is don't sabotage your own content efforts. I see this all the time. This meme is a painful one because I see this constantly and it makes me so upset when I see people doing this to themselves, right? Our results aren't good enough. Continue to do the same thing as before. And then, well, we didn't get any results. So I guess marketing doesn't work. Let's lay people off. Let's cut budget. Let's get rid of our vendors. To get different outcomes, you need to do different things, right? There's this famous Einstein quote. I don't know if it's actually him or not, but I do like it, which is insanity. The definition of insanity is doing the same things and expecting different outcomes. Like, if you want something to get better, you have to do something differently. You can't expect things to get better if you're doing what you've been doing that hasn't been working. So
That's so true. That's so
true. On my end.
Thank you. Yeah. So when I was thinking about like, all right, how I can actually show everyone how to implement this customer journey, right? I could get in a lot of trouble doing this, but scan this QR code. You're gonna get to a Miro link where I show the end-to-end process showcasing how outreach is integrated with Belkins content initiatives at each stage. I'm gonna share my screen. All right, yeah, I can get in the trouble like sharing this, but who cares, right? Like, it's my company, can do whatever I want, right?
Michael and I both have reputations internally. People we work with as people who don't understand secrets and confidentiality.
For a second, just to show you how it looks. And all right, so I'm sharing it. All right, so basically it's a Miro template that you can copy that shows different stages from awareness, engagement, activation, and conversion, where highlighted are the different type of content that we're using at each stage, and then how they're connected with the BDR work, with the outreach, with paid ads, with SEs and C-level. Because like right now at Belkins, everyone is involved in acquisition, not just the sales team and the marketing team, but myself, my partner, my head of marketing, head of sales, everyone is involved. And everyone have this very thoughtful process of what we're doing to be able to build those relationships, right? So I copied and adapted this process for you guys. So yeah, I'm gonna go back to the screen, copy QR code, Miro link, and then you're gonna have a slides as well, so you can do it later as well. All right. So this is our unique process that we've developed in-house. All right. Now there is a difference for companies that before implementing this with kind of fragmented journey that we already talked about a couple of minutes ago, and then here's how the bright future going to look like for you after, which is the integrated customer journey, right? In terms of the number of demos booked, we've seen that the numbers are at least are doubling or 2.5% growth. So your SDR is going to be booking between 8 to 10 qualified opportunities. Your conversion grew in terms of from the lead to appointment. Your closing rate is low. Your cost goes down at least 25%. And then your CAC as well goes down. And then it's a little shorter on the sales cycle for some companies as well. But this is a result that you can expect within the first year. Every next year that you do this, you do it better, 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 and then it's going to be optimizing, right? Right now,
flywheels.
Yes. Sorry.
Go on.
Everyone knows that English is not my first language. So.
No. I'm just no. That's not it. I'm just reminding people of the other things I said. You're good.
All right. It's just Mariya just says that she didn't check the deck before putting it online. So.
Oh, we're all good. It's fine.
Yes, I mentioned that.
We'll move on. We're
all right. So, you remember at the beginning when we do this, I mentioned that, and this is actually thanks Mariya for bringing this meme to my attention. But there's a world where both inbound and outbound works together, and this is the world of marketing. So the concept of we're doing just the outbound or the inbound or both, it doesn't make sense. Like it's always marketing, right? So it's just acquisition. So the way you execute it could be different, right? My next thing that I want you guys to have is the list of the 10 cross-channel campaigns that I also built for you that you can also download. I can share you real quickly what do we have there. But again, it's another thing that I was working on here that I would like you guys to have. So basically what you see here is the different stages: awareness, activation, engagement, conversion, right? Different type of cross-channel campaigns with their description, what outbound outreach channels it needs to have, what inbound channels, what are the assets that your company needs to have to create that, what is the additional budget required, what is the annual budget that you need approximately to run this both in-house and outsourcing, what is the number of appointments you can generate if you start with this channel tomorrow, and what is the average cost comparing channel to channel, so you can see how you can optimize them. And the way I would run through this is I would start with awareness channel, and I can execute a couple of those campaigns, right? Then I would do 1.5 months of, let's say, the webinar, and then 1.5 months of outreach. So one campaign could cost me 3 months. And then every 3 months, I'm essentially using another campaign and then nurturing the audience. So at the end, the audience will be doing just the conversion. But before this, the 3 consecutive quarters, the audience were involved in the engagement, activation, and awareness campaign. So yeah, it's actually, again, it's just an example of how you can run marketing, not as a scientist where you have all this, metrics and like this, and then like you hear somewhere on LinkedIn saying that, oh, we do this and this inbound. No, it's actually how you can do it right now. So when you hear someone saying that, oh, we just want to do inbound, ask them, what do you mean by that? What actually are you doing? Are you just doing paid ads? Well, then it's not a good marketing, right? It's not classy. It's just paid advertising. So yeah, just download this. It's gonna and then Mariya, you also prepared a special gift for people.
I did, which is basically a bit of a free workshop, so to speak, of a kind, which this is a template that you see here, which we have developed for our clients. Essentially, it's meant for helping define a goal, break it up into channels that goal could be relevant to and how to accomplish it, audience outcomes, so what do you want people to get away from that, right, within that channel, then pair that with the goal for your business, the outcome that you actually want, that you would achieve if the audience gets the audience outcome, and then the metrics that you can use to measure it and track it. So if anybody that signs up, you can get on a 30-minute call with me, no strings attached, just that one call, where we will basically walk through this, and by the end, you will have a filled out custom template version for yourself.
Love this. I appreciate you, Mariya. Sharing this and doing this for the folks listening to this. Yeah, guys, the number of people that can book the call with Mariya is limited. So go ahead and book time and grow. So yeah, I know I promised 10 minutes at the end, but I lied. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I answered the question that was asked already in the chat. It's like broken up into three messages. Sorry about
Yeah.
that, but it is there.
So can
So,
you?
yeah.
I'm gonna put on the question here. Can you read it?
Yeah, the question was what advice we'd give to an AI startup if the goal is awareness and building trust, which channel is most important? And what I was saying is start by thinking not about what you do, but rather who you do it for, right? So break up who your intended audience and your intended buyers are, right? What are the characteristics that matter in terms of, company size, what kinds of solutions they offer, right? What are their service offerings and business model? Where are they located? Who do they serve? What industries are they in, right?
Yeah.
What are their titles? And kind of figure out where they already go. Like, where can you find people like that? You can use platforms for this, like SparkToro, Semrush, SimilarWeb, etc. You can also start by literally just getting your sales reps to add a question to their sales calls of like, where do you usually get information about these topics, right? Related to AI. Or you can ask your existing customers, right? Just start talking to people, start figuring out where they hang out. And there it will start becoming pretty obvious what channels matter.
I love this. Thanks, Mariya. And I
Yeah.
hope you get your answer. So we're about to finish. It's already 1 o'clock, so we're open for one more questions.
Yeah.
If anyone has
Okay.
a question that you wanted to drop quickly in the chat, I think me and Mariya are gonna answer that, and then we're gonna ramp up for today.
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
1, 2. Let them type. They might need to type.
All right.
Maybe
Yes.
like 10
So
seconds.
while if anyone is typing, thank you everyone for joining us today. Mariya,
Yes,
thank you
thank
so
you
much
so
for
much.
working on this
Thank
with
you,
me. It
Michael.
was so cool.
Yes,
It's always
this
a
was
pleasure to
fun.
having you on and doing this with you. Guys, I hope
Wow.
you enjoyed us, and I hope you enjoyed the topic. If you want to learn more about this, sign up for Mariya LinkedIn page, sign up for me, and just be
Yes.
curious. And yeah, because we're going to be talking more and more about this and all other topics related to the a good acquisition, because we've seen that companies need help with this, and because not all the companies have been privileged to work with other businesses like we are, as well as have big marketing budgets. So we are here to share. So thank you everyone for joining us, and thank you, Mariya,
Yeah.
for being here
Yeah.
today and doing this.
Thank you
Thank you,
so
everyone.
much for having me. I don't think we have any questions. Doesn't seem like we do. So thank you everybody for tuning in. And we hope that this helps you and you can do better marketing because that's
Hey,
why